Here we'll talk a little bit about isometric and axonometric drawing within AutoCAD. So the first thing to sort of call out here is going to be at the bottom where this polar tracking component is. So if we click on the down arrow there, so you can see the polar tracking that we have selected right now is 90, 180, 270, 360. So if we click on this and we do polar tracking, you can see it'll track, you see where it says polar 22.1538. It'll also track up in these directions, so it'll track basically in my 90-degree directions. So if we turn polar tracking on to 4590, what we're going to have is going to track out in my 0, then at 45 it'll actually snap, and then at 90 it'll snap, and so on. So for those of you using axonometric drawing, this is going to be a really useful tool because you can go vertically, then you can go off in that direction, and you can create axonometric drawings really easily. For those of you using isometric drawing, you can do 30, 60, 90. So if we go ahead and draw a polyline now, you can see we can snap in my 60 or in my 30. So what we'll look at here is, let's go ahead and draw just a, so we'll just draw a rectangle, copy these up, we'll copy this one over to here, and then we'll basically connect the dots. Okay, so we've really easily here constructed an isometric. Same thing could be said for axonometric. You would just go down to your polar tracking here. So the next thing we'll go over is how to draw a circle in isometric. So for the axonometric people, this is a little bit more difficult. There are some sort of hacked together ways that you can do it within this environment. One being basically, if we look at our polar tracking here, we can set a polyline. We'll just do a 1 inch, a little 1 inch square. So we'll go ahead and do 1 inch, and then come back to there. Then you would go ahead and split this into quadrants, and then we would use our arc tool. So you would use the start end direction, so you'd go start end direction. It does end up coming out a little bit wonky, so if these are going to be really big, I would not recommend using this technique. So you would go ahead and do the same thing for these guys, and go through and do it that way. It's not a perfect method, so be careful using this. Only do it on really small components. If you have bigger components, I would recommend just going into Rhino, drawing this basic box out, and then actually taking the view in Rhino. So actually just rotate it back and then rotate it up, and then take your, either from the front or the top view, take what that object looks like. For the isometric people, you have a much easier technique to use. So you guys can use this isometric drafting. So you can go, let's go into our right plane here. So you can see now that I'm aligned with this plane. So if we type ellipse, and then we type I, that's going to make us an isocircle. So you can see here that if we now look at the center of our isocircle, it'll automatically map onto that box. So obviously now if we wanted to actually construct this, what we can do is we can type ellipse, and then we can type I, that will make us an isocircle. We can go at our center, and then we can look at creating. Now obviously, because I'm on a rectangular face, you can't make it totally fit this because it's not square, but you can do something like that, and that will make you a perfect isocircle. If you wanted to go into your left view, we can type ellipse again, then type I, and then you would be in that plane. And then the same thing obviously goes for the top. So you would click down on this, go to isoplane top, and then go to ellipse, type I, and then you would be drawing a circle in that plane. So isometric people, fairly easy. Axonometric people, I would recommend just doing small discrete parts in Rhino and then importing back into CAD. You're going to have a much, much easier time with that.